because it was so uncertain, right? Because it was my first time and I was unsure of how everything will go. Like I did have to put in a lot of effort and you did as well. Like,
Okay, would you recommend to somebody who is applying to one of these universities to maybe receive some advice? Because, it's something that we don't do every day, right? In particular, somebody who is just applying to a US university, it's the first time that you're doing this and it's the only time that you're doing this, right? So what would you say to somebody who is like just starting the process and maybe having doubts about whether I need some advice?
Okay, well, first, if they're having a lot of difficult time, then they should find an advisor, someone who can help them sort things out and explain things to them. Because when I first started, I had zero idea what I am doing, right? I didn't know like you're supposed to like check all these universities and see their requirements, right? Because for each university have different questions and different word counts. And there are some things in your essay you should never put, right? These are things that someone who's getting started needs to know, but they probably don't. So what they need is someone who knows to help them through this process. And another advice I would give is also check in with, like always be communicating with your advisor, right? So if you have questions, don't hesitate to ask them. What it is. If you have a problem, tell them immediately. Because if you don't, they don't know and they can't help you. And then at the end of the day, it's you who are suffering because it's you who the university is going to be looking at when you write those essays. And if you don't do a good job or if you could have done better but you didn't, then you're like missing out.
Would you say that your advisor, anybody's advisor, has to know the person really well in order to understand, what he wants, what are, his strengths and weaknesses, and overall really know the person who he can really advise?
Yes, I think the role of an advisor isn't only to like help you get into college. Well, it is, right? But in order to do a good job of that, they need to know you. Because how else are they going to like advise you on like your personal hobbies or who you are without knowing about you first, right? So they can't really help you do that if they don't, get to know you first. So what I'm trying to say is at the beginning, you and I had like a really long talk. I think the first like 2 or 3 sessions was us talking and getting to know each other. And at first I was like, I thought it was like a kind of like a waste, if I'm being honest.
Right.
Because, we were just talking. But like later on, I kind of realized why we had to have this talk, because if you don't know me, like first you wouldn't like care that much, I guess. Like if you didn't know me, you would just be like, oh, it's just like another client, right? He can do like, I guess I'll just help him a little bit, right? But now that you know me, you kind of feel like this obligation, right? To do this that's beyond just professional. But second also is because once you get to know me, you kind of get a feel of my personal preferences, right? You know how I will act. So on the essays that I write, you can see like how you can change everything so that it sounds more like myself, if that makes sense.
Now, can you tell us finally, what was the first university that met you and how was that feeling? After all the process, after all these months studying for the SAT, TOEFL, etc. Which was the first university that met you, and how do you feel about that?
The first university that accepted me was Indiana Bloomington, and it was the first, and it came very early. So I think it was like a really special feeling because I finished my SAT and then I immediately got to writing the essays. I finished all the essays and before like knowing who will accept me, I was feeling very anxious, right? Because I did all this work. Imagine if the universities, after all of that effort put in, just all rejected me. Like, because what really happens is when you apply to universities, you don't know if they will accept you or not.
Right.
So what is happening is you could potentially be doing all of that for nothing. But so that's why when you're like choosing the universities that you're applying to, you have to be really careful. So during that period, I was very anxious, but luckily only like, I guess a few weeks after that, I got an offer from Bloomington and I was overjoyed. So when I opened that letter and like, I think like little ribbons popped out and it was like, congratulations, you have been accepted to Bloomington. I was super happy because that means first, the effort that I put into myself, that I invested in time and effort to do this has paid off. And it also means what I've been doing is correct. Because the acceptances after Indiana, Bloomington just keep on rolling in. I think like, I got like, I forgot, it was like
many universities.
Many universities,
right.
Exactly. And basically, as soon as I got the first acceptance, I feel secure because I know even if I got no more acceptances, at least I have a backup option.
Okay. I don't know, you remember what I told you when we were doing all this and I was telling you, don't worry, we're okay, we're doing fine and so on. Obviously, you and maybe your family, you were a little bit anxious and maybe nervous about the process. How do you feel now, thinking about those moments in which I was giving you advice and I was telling you, no, it's okay, we're doing great, the city is fine, all the A's are good and so on. Now that you look back, what do you think about that moment when you were nervous, right?
Yeah, I think it's kind of funny because looking back, a lot of what you said is true. I think all of what you said is pretty much true. Right. So at that moment, because it was so uncertain, right? Because it was my first time and I was unsure of how everything will go. But yeah, looking back, it wasn't like it was like I did have to put in a lot of effort, and you did as well. But looking back, it wasn't as if like it wasn't feeling as intense as it was.
Right. So David, from all the universities that finally accept you and admit you to the study with them, which was the one that you decided to go and why?
So I decided to go on the University of Florida, and University of Florida has some very good financial. It has a reputation of having a good finance and good business majors in that school. Second, because it's very close to a lot of businesses that I could intern to once I am accepted to the University of Florida. And the third is because of, I guess, proximity to Latin American culture. So there's a lot of people who speak Spanish there. And what I want is once I go there, I make some friends and then I can finally practice Spanish with them.
Right, because you speak 3 languages, right?
I do. I speak 3 languages.